Good morning and good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to talk to you after some time because I have been actually vivacious and busy for my own academic writing stuff. So I wasn't able to talk to you after a long time. So I was thinking once I find some time, I should be able to talk to you at least this way. Not probably with a what you call a formal talk series, which I have some time. So this is how this is. Uh, I'm here for you to talk about a wonderful topic, mind and body. So in this short talk, what I basically look at and explain to you is that not to get into those hardcore philosophical questions about what these philosophers have told, but I try to explain to you about what kind of a healthy perspective that we can have towards the mind and the body. Now, the idea here is that mind and body have been differently explained so that people have a misconception that they are two separate entities. So, without getting into the details of this short talk, I want to tell you that mind and body, to the Theravada Buddhist perspective, are not two separate entities. Then you might perhaps question then why they have been separately given at different places. It is because unless you dissect the two, you won't understand the specific role and the meaning, the function of those two. So that is why mind and body have been dissected separately, uh, discussed. Now, if you look at Panchakanda, the teaching of five aggregates, you can clearly see that these five have been given as one bar, I mean, as one what do you call thing, one entity, which means Rupa Kanda, Vedana Kanda, Sanya Kanda, Sankhara Kanda, and Vijnana Kanda, right? Rupa Kanda means the aggregate of form. Vedana Kanda means aggregate of feelings, whatever the feelings you have. Sanya Kanda means the aggregate of perceptions. And Sankhara Kanda means the aggregate of formations, which means kusala, akusala aspects of us, which carry us in the samsara. And Vijnana Kanda means the aggregate of consciousness. This is particularly the consciousness that we have in this life, which is based in the samsaric consciousness. We call it Alivinyana from the Yogacara perspective. So now here you see that there is no separation, but we separate out this way. Rupa Kanda is one fold, it's one kind, and then Vedana, Sanya, Sankhara, Vijnana are to be differently taken as the mind. So mind, what do you call mind and matter, or I would say body and mind have been can be dissected that way. But when they were given, they were not dissected. But for easy understanding, we dissect, we separate them because otherwise we won't be able to understand the specific role, what they play. So now the idea is that, philosophically speaking, that this is a long held debate among philosophers, especially from Western philosophy. But in even in Indian philosophy, we see that the dualism, they talk about mind is one fold and body is one fold, so there's a dualism. As I said to you at the beginning, probably during the talk, short talk here, that they are not twofold, they are one. Now there are ancillary questions coming up within your mind. What are those questions like? Now, one question is, if we look at Dhammapada, the first, what do you call, let me see, the first stanza of the first chapter of Dhammapada, it says, Mano Pubbangama Dhamma Mano Setta Manomaya Manasache Padutena no Manasache Pasanye, and so on and so forth, which means mind precedes all your experiences. Okay? Mano Pubbangama Dhamma, which means Dhamma here refers to experiences. How now? A lot of people don't understand how to separate out Dhamma. Now, this connotation carries a different idea. Dhamma in this stanza of Mano Pubbangama Dhamma does not mean the teaching. Here, Dhamma means experiences. So, our experiences are preceded by the mind. Okay. So, what is an experience like in Buddhism? Experience in Buddhism means sanya, vedana, which means perceptions and feelings. Actually, we carry, when I ask you, tell me about your experience of uh, having some fun time with other things. Tell me about your experience of studying. Tell me about your experience of living. Tell me your experience about tasting different food. Now you have only two. What are they? You may have a perception about it. Perception means you have a previous, what do you call, previous noting about those kind of food or stuff, and you are creating more notes for the future. That is perception. And then you have feelings that have arisen as a consequence of the perceptions. So your experiences only have sanya and vedana. So here it says in the Dhamma stanza, our experiences are preceded by the mind. So it doesn't say mind is different from the body, right? It only says our experiences are preceded by the mind. Okay, so don't get it misunderstood, because it only says that experiences consist of sanya vedana, and these sanya vedana are primarily driven by the mind. Okay? That is one idea here. Uh, I mean, a lot of people might come up with that misconception if they only think, okay, mind is the biggest, and no, I mean, mind and body, they cannot live separately. Mind cannot work alone. Body cannot work alone. So they have to come together. Now, say for instance, when you die, what will happen to you? You might argue that, oh, yeah, I leave my body, right? That happens, right? I mean, let's say uh, you die at a certain time in this life, and then what will happen is that you leave the body and then you go. You might think that, okay, that means mind is more powerful than the body. Yeah, mind, you could understand that, you could think that way, but the idea here is that we call it the psychod perspective. That means you're gonna be a gandhabba. But you know what, once you die, you cannot survive without a body. So the moment that you die, you being a psychod gandhabba, you are supposed to look for a body, because mind cannot exist without a body. That's why in that instant, what you call the split second, probably a nanosecond, your consciousness, what you call by you're gonna be reborn in another realm with a body. So I mean, don't take it in a little light way, because although you see that mind is what is manifest everywhere, but body does a different important role to the mind. So to be honest, if I say mind cannot exist without the body, then you will understand how important is the mind, the body, right? So that is very important. Now you drop your body here, you leave your body here, and then you're gonna look for another body. So if somebody is trying to make an argument that see, the body is left here and the mind is going, so that argument is not quite a statement, because what the mind is doing, that mind knows that the body is going to get old, and probably body has met some problems, so mind wants to find another body, otherwise it can't survive. So this is the idea, the primary idea of the mind and body, especially in terms of the separation, or I would say understanding that one, you can't say that one is better than the other, right? You can't take one over the other, because they are equally important. I'm going to be talking about how to take care of the boat at the end, so you might understand that how you are supposed to take care of the boat at the end. On the other hand, now, folks, I think other areas of the mind and the body. Now, in what you call psychology or philosophical sciences, they they take the brain and the particular neurons, and they are actually quite emphasizing about the neurotransmitters, which means that the neurotransmitters and neurons, hormones, they connect each other across the body. So the idea, what we have to talk at this point is, does mind have a place in our body? To be honest, especially from the text, there is no particular place for the mind in Buddhism, especially from the Theravada early Buddhism. One example is this stanza, as you can remember. Durangamang ekacharang asarirang guhasya. Ye chittang sanyamesanti mokhanti marabandhana. This is quite about the mind. Okay. Durangamam, mind is going far. It's always going far, right? Although you are here, but your mind can go really, really far, right? At any time. It's nature. It's not a bad thing, right? It is. It's the nature of the mind. You don't worry about it, but there is something to worry about. But that's the nature of the mind, right? If the mind is not going far, then we have to focus on everything that is around us, so that sometimes it's not a good experience for you. Let's say you are living with violent people, you are living with a environment that you don't like. So you can't take your mind off from that situation because mind is naturally going far away. In a way, it's good, I think. But there is something that we need to know with that issue. It will be an issue at a certain point. Durangama, Ekacharam means mind is always living alone. Although you might say, I want to be socialized and I want to be surrounded by people. But mind naturally likes to be alone. You know, it can go both good and bad ways, right? Sometimes you might see even the criminals, they would like to take a lot of me time or their time, so they might probably do bad things. But mind naturally would like to stay alone, right? Durangama, ekachara. Asarira. Now, this is the point I want to actually discuss with you. Asarira. Sarira means the body. Mind has no body. So you cannot particularly locate the mind within the body. Let me see. Let me ask you. Now, where is your mind at this point? Is it in the brain? Is it in somewhere else? Is it in your... I don't know. I mean, where is your mind at this point? Right? You can't particularly locate it. You might say that it might be somewhere with my eyes or whatever, but you can't particularly locate it because mind is an, uh, you know, uh, mind is an experience that is actually varying across the body. But in the Abhidhamma, they are trying to discuss a place for the mind. Because Abhidhamma was actually uh, compiled after the Nikayas, right? So they are saying mind has a place which they call by Hadeyavattu. Now, Hadeyavattu is what they call by a place near your heart, your physical heart. They say it is not in the heart, but the mind is not in the heart, but the mind associates the blood near your heart. Now, so there is no argument when there is an open heart surgery. Let's say your heart is taken out. So where's the mind? Don't worry, because wherever the heart is, there should be some blood. So the mind is living, associating that blood around your what do you call the heart. That is the Abhidhamma explanation of Theravada. But in the Theravada, in Nikaya Buddhism, in early teachings, they don't talk about a place. They say it is bodiless, locationless. Right? So that means you have a physical body now. Once you die, you will be having another body one day. Uh, so mine has no problem. Mine has opportunity to use this body now, and then when I die, when you die, mine is trying to get into another body in whatever the realm. So mind is always taking the chance of our body, whatever the physical entities. So, uh, but we don't see the wonder of the body so as compared to the mind. This is why a lot of people only focus on the mind, right? But we have to look at the body too, because without you taking care of the body, you might not be able to develop your mind, right? There are some so-called Buddhist people who might think everything is impermanent and suffering and not self. So that I don't want to take care of my body. I'm gonna die one day. So that they are giving a very hard time to their mind. When you are not clean, when you are not comfortable, when you are not what do you call free from your mind from the unnecessary garbage, how are you going to develop your mind? It's pretty difficult. At least you should have a concern towards your body. Somebody might say, I want to decorate myself, I want to uh, what do you call do a lot of beautification to my body. It's your choice. But if you do it in a way how you're going to keep yourself in moderation, that should be okay. I'm not against in my understanding, Buddhism is not against of anybody's taking care of the body unless it is too much. When it is too less, when you are not caring for your body at all, when you are too much beautifying yourself, there might be ends, extreme ends. But you really need to take care of yourself, especially from the body perspective too. Okay, what are the teachings about the body that have made people to ignore the body and only focus on the mind? Okay, now if you look at Theravada Buddhism, lot of teachings in Theravada Buddhism, especially sutras and all these stanzas, they have been given to people who are on the verge of becoming an arahant, enlightened person, right? There's no argument. It's not you, it's not me. If it was me, then I would have been enlightened already, and if it's you, then you would have been enlightened too. They were enlightened. They were going to be enlightened for sure, right? That is why just by learning those sutras, even small stanzas, they were able to attain Nibbana. So we see that there is an emphasis about the body because there is kind of a thought about the body in the sutras that body has to be used as an object to think about the impermanence of the life, because mind is not visible, invisible, but the body is visible all the time. But just because the body is visible all the time, that doesn't mean that you have to disregard, you have to sort of insult the body. Now in Satipatthana Sutta we see it's both the uh, living form of the body and also the non-living form of the body have been given to find objects for Satipatthana Sutta, for your mindfulness. It's okay. But the idea here is do not insult your body, because if you have hatred, oh, probably you are losing a good opportunity to develop your mind. I'm always saying if you have a well taken care of body and the mind, you are definitely reaching your peace of mind. Right? Even the peace of mind start from taking care of your body too, in a certain way. So just because you see those teachings in some of the sutras, don't try to uh, come to what you call a conclusion that I have to always ignore caring of my body. Don't do that because it's a misunderstanding. But don't uh, don't overly concern about any of even the mind or even the body. Right? You should have a moderate way of looking at the both mind and the body. So that is why a lot of people misunderstand body has to be always looked at from a very belittling point of view, or probably a disregarding point of view, because even in some of the sutras talk about that body has to be looked at in a very disgusting way, probably the living form, even the dead body as we say in the Satipatthana. But please be careful, because if you do that right away without taking care of cleanliness, what you call keeping your body with healthy food, you might not be able to even develop your uh, presence of your mind, mindfulness, right? Finally, I want to discuss about how to take care of the body and the mind. Okay, how can we do that? If somebody asks me, how can I practice mindfulness or what a Buddhist practice in my daily life? I always tell them, when you wake up, make your bed. It is because this physicality really matters. When you wake up, if you make your bed, that means you looking at this concentration. You looking at what you call the consistency of something, right? And then you start cleaning, right? Cleaning is a very good way of being mindful. If you wash your dishes with your hands for a long period of time, you cook, especially washing the dishes, also a very good way of keeping yourself very calm. They are physical. Pots and dishes, pans, they are physical stuff. But when you are doing it, you need some patience, because otherwise you won't be able to do it, right? So taking care of the mind and the body is similar to that, which means we have to start from physicality, because before you touch base with the body, the mind, because it's invisible, it is better to start from the body, with the perspective that you are certainly entering into the mind at a certain point. All right. So so the background knowledge of what we should do for the both mind and body is that we should equally care mind and the body. Specifically, do not ignore uh, the body part. Okay, so take care of your body, but not be excessively attached to the body, because that's going to be the greed, but take care of it. Eat well, uh, do some exercises, fitness stuff, do some yoga if you could. At the same time, look at your mind. That will be the easiest, smartest, healthiest way to look at your mind. But if you don't do any physical uh, fitness things, or if you don't get to eat healthy stuff, if your body is going to be a mess, you don't expect that you're going to be having the peace of mind. You're going to be taking care of the mind, because they are all connected. So in Buddhism, we do not believe the duality. We do not say that mind and the body are two things. In Buddhism, mind and body are one thing. It's an entity. But why are they separately given? It is because these two have two roles. So we need to dissect them to understand the two roles. So once we understand the two roles, then we know that we have to synthesize, combine these two, because we have to understand that mind cannot work without the body, body can't work without the mind. They always need each other. They always are interdependent, right? Now, if any of you to think that I don't care the body, I only care the mind, that is a wrong understanding in Buddhism. Because in Buddhism, nothing is dependent, right? Nothing is dependent. Nothing is independent. Everything is dependent, interdependent. Mind is dependent on the body. Body is dependent on the mind. So they are all interdependent, right? So now attaining Nibbana one day is the place where you cut this uh, dependency, right? So the idea here is that you should care both the mind and the body, right? That, so I want to dispel that misunderstanding. When you want to practice, if you really want to practice true Buddhism, you must look at the both aspects equally. Do not ignore one over the other because they are all equally important. Do not even call that I have a mind, I have a body, so they are separate. No, they are not separate. But they were separately talked, discussed to understand different roles. Before I wind this up, I also want to talk about three words in Pali for the mind. As you know, there is a word called mano, right? This word called mano is the physical sense of the mind. That means the sort of the place that we have in this life for our thinking. But chitta is another Pali word. Now let me type in for you. As you can see here, do not mind about the graphical marks. I can show you. This word, mano. So mano is the physical sense of the mind. That means you have it at the moment because it's in this life. So mano start when you have a life. Now, in this life you have a mano, physical sense of mind, and then you're gonna be having another mind, keeps going till you attain nibbana. This word chitta, chitta is not mind. Chitta we call them as thoughts. Now, chittas are arising in our mind, physical mind. Thoughts. What are those thoughts? Raga, dosa, moha, samahita, asamahita, vitakka. There are a bunch of thoughts. I think there are 16 thoughts given in the Satipatthana Sutra. We may have a lustful thought, we may have a dispassionate thought, we may have a hatred thought, we may have a loving kindness kind of thought, we may have ignorant thought, we may have a wise thought. The list keeps going on. So these thoughts are called by chittas, not the mind. So mind, if mind is the physical base, within that mind, chittas arise, stay, and then perish. One important word for chitta, so the mind is the physical, what you call the thinking capacity, thinking cognition is vijnana. Now this is a very developed level of our thinking. It's beyond mano and chitta. Vijnana, we call it consciousness, start as a result of the development of mano and chitta. Now, say for instance, let's take this example. Now, through my eyes, now I see my own interface screen here. So that is going to be my image, and I have my piece of eyes. So my piece of eyes, I get to see get to see the interface. So with that striking, with that connection, there arises eye consciousness because my mind and the images got a connection. Through that connection, eye consciousness arises. Ears and the sound, my own sound at this moment. So my own sounds are having an impingement with my ears, so there is the ear consciousness, what you call sota vinyana, gana. So the list goes on. So we have three Pali words that are being used for the thinking. Okay, so there's only one Pali word because in Buddhism, this thinking has been looked at in different developmental ways. Now, even in the English terminology, they talk about mind, but in Buddhism, we have lots of minds, but not in the sense of that physical mind, mano, because within our mind there are lots of thoughts arise. In Abhidhamma, we call it there are 89 thoughts arise. Sometimes it could go as far as 121, right? So what you need to understand at this moment is that there are three Pali words that are particularly used for our thinking, right? So our thinking takes different forms as it gets developed, progress. Okay, so it's been half an hour. So let me recap. Today, I talked about what is mind and body, and I particularly emphasized that in Buddhism, we do not separate them in our understanding, but we do separate them to understand the different roles of these two. But they are not two, they are one. But we dissect to understand the importance of these two, the roles, functions of these two. Body functions differently, mind functions differently, but they cannot exist without each other, right? That's the bottom line. And I also talked about some of the misconceptions, like people think that they are separate, they are not separate actually, and people think that mind should be more important. No, it's not. They are equally important. What you need to understand with the Dhamma stance is that mind precedes all these experiences. It doesn't mean that mind is more important than the body. They are equally important because they cannot survive without each other. And I also talked about some of the sort of paradoxes, two kind of truths that we see in texts about the body, because body is usually generally taken as a disgusting point. My body is very disgusting. It's going to get all, and I have to focus on. These are actually given at a certain level of our mind. I mean, at a certain level of our Buddhist practice. So do not take them right away in your practice. I'm asking you to take care of the body, but when you take care of the body, then you will come to a certain knowledge, certain understanding that body has this kind of degeneration. At the same time, mind is this kind of a transmission. If you want to understand that mind, the body is like that important, then the mind is also very important, impermanent, because it is also taking different forms, taking different bodies as it goes, right? It is more dangerous in a sense if you call it like that. So there are so many misconceptions. So my idea is that they have to be taken equally. Otherwise, you're going to ignore one or the other. And finally, we discuss about how to take care of mind and body, because I always emphasize that they both have to be taken care very well. It doesn't mean you have to beautify it too much or you have to ignore completely. There are two ends. As Buddhists, we are supposed to walk on the middle path, Majjhima Patipada. In Majjhima Patipada, if you don't beautify a little bit, that means you are falling into Attakilamatana. If you are beautifying yourself too much, you're going to fall into self-indulgence, Kamasukhalika. Beautify yourself the way that you want to feel comfortable, because you need that. Otherwise, you're going to lose or run out of your confidence, trust about you. But you know that this is my body and this is the mind. They are working together. So if you have that understanding, you can carry on your Dhamma practice very well without falling into too much emphasis about one particular aspect. So take care of your body and the mind, and then work on your path. Thank you, everybody. It's a pleasure to talk to you today, and I'm sometimes having some time like this. That is how I'm gonna come up, and then give a short talk. Otherwise, please bear with me. We will be having some talks, programs in the future as time permits. Have a good night, have a good morning, have a good day. Take care.